Today I'm making this video for two different purposes. One, I did some research on the internet on how to remove the rear tire of a motorcycle. You couldn't find anything but documentation, no videos, so there's one reason. And the second reason is for my public speaking class for a demonstration video. So I hope you enjoy and I hope this is informative for you. I'm going to start off by introducing the bike. This is a 2012 Triumph Daytona 675R. We've had it for just a little under a year. Currently about 3,000 miles on it. Different reasons why you would want to take off the rear tire on a motorcycle, obviously, is to replace the tire. You could also clean your chain real well, and if you wanted to change out your brake calipers, or just a few reasons. Another reason that you might want to do it is to tighten the chain itself. So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to remove the tire, tighten the chain a little bit, and put it back on. The tools necessary to do this job on this motorcycle is a 12mm spanner or combo wrench, a 13mm combo wrench, and a breaker bar with a 27mm socket. Again, this is a British motorcycle, so everything's in millimeters. Helping me today, I have a friend, Josh, who's going to perform one side while I'm doing the other just to make the job a little bit quicker, but we'll try to show you everything that's going on. So, step one, you're going to want to break the nut that's holding the axle into place. So it's pretty simple. Last time I did this, I tightened it pretty good. So just give it a nice little off. Which I'm going the wrong way. That's tightened. No, not the right way. Once you work it down to a certain point where it's pretty loose, you can just screw the whole thing right off. So you're going to want to remove the nut and the washer. And you want to take a couple of quick eye measurements before you actually take the tire off. One of the things that you might want to check is the play in your chain. There shouldn't be more than a 1/2 inch play up or down from where it rests. If you have more, you want to tighten it to that. But always check with your manual to ensure. The second thing you want to look at is these measurement marks. Just so if you're putting it back on when you don't care about the play in the chain, you want to keep it where it's at. You want to mark it or note where it is when you took it off. At this time, there's the 6 marks, and it's at the very front of the 6th mark. Alright, now that we have that done, what you're going to want to do is break the tightness on the tightening pins. And it's pretty simple. You just break this one here that holds the pin in place. And with the 13mm socket, and then you're going to take the 12mm and back it back down. A few turns, and Josh is going to do the same thing on the other side for me. Once you have them loosened just a little bit, you can actually pull the spacer out of this side. And now that you have that spacer removed, you're good. You're good, you don't need to do that. Okay. Once you have the spacer removed on this side, you can push the axle forward and take the chain, pull it away and out from the sprocket, and just spin it right off. And the chain will come right off. Take the chain and rest it here on top of the dog bone so that it's out of the way of the sprocket and the axle. Okay. So now if you want to come over on the other side, we have the brake caliper and the brake rotor. You're going to want to slide the tire with the sprocket and watch the brake caliper and the rotor so that you don't hit or ding them. But the brake caliper itself is also going to slide back. So once you pull that back just a little bit to loosen it, you can pull the actual, while supporting the tire underneath, pull the actual axle out. Now that the axle is removed, you can take the caliper, and if you have to on some bikes, you might want to take the caliper and rest it right at the top of the dog bone while you perform any maintenance that you're doing. Now that we actually have the tire off, we can perform any maintenance that we needed to do, and we're going to put the tire back on. Another fact that I wanted to show you guys before we put the tire back on is there's these spacers that go basically in here in between the wheel bearings. There's one on each side, and they're different on each side, so you can't put the wrong ones in the wrong place. But make sure when you're putting the tire back on that they are in place and they're not being crushed. So if we look here on the actual dog bone itself, there's a slot right here that this part of the caliper right here is going to slide into. We're going to want to slide that into place at the same time that we're bringing the tire up and matching the rotor in between the caliper pads. So that's what we're going to do now. Start off by getting the brake caliper in position. Okay. Once we have that in position, align the brake rotor with the caliper pads. Yeah, I'm going to bring this up, Josh. Are you in the slot on the dog bone?
Yep.
Okay.
Pads are super.
Okay, and so now that we have this in, get this spacer back in place. Bring it down real quick. And now that we have the spacer back in place, we can line everything back up. Once it's lined back up, you're going to put the axle back in with the small part facing forward on the bike. You may have to take a little play up or down, forward or back, in order to get the axle lined up. Once everything's lined up, just push it into place. Okay, now if you want to come back over to the other side, we're going to reinstall the chain and retighten the nut and tighten the chain to proper tightness. So in order to put the chain back on, just take one of your first links here, match it up to the sprocket teeth. Once you have that lined up, hold the rest of the chain and just turn the chain and tire together, and they'll marry back up and line back up. Once they're lined up, you can take the tire itself and you're going to want to pull it back. Place your spacer. Again, the spacer, you're going to take the small end forward with the angle side up, matching the other side, mirroring the other side. Once you have that spacer in there, push that right down. The whole time being careful to watch your threads on your axle, that you don't want to nick any of them up. Place your washer on and your lock nut. Once you put your nut on, this time we're just going to hand tighten this down just to keep it in place, and we're going to set our spacer using this bolt right here back to this position marking where we originally had it. So in order to do that, you're just going to tighten this back. And again, I'm going to the very front of the 6th mark where I originally had the tire set before. Check your play. Still a little loose, but the other side's not completely tightened yet, so we'll let Josh get the other side tightened up. Now what you want to do after you tighten that up is bring this locking bolt or nut all the way forward up against the dog bone and just give it a quick little tighten so it doesn't back itself back down. How's it look over on that side, Josh?
Look pretty good. Just double checking.
Okay.
Yep. Very good. All right.
It's the wrong side.
Oh, here we go.
That's all right. Okay.
12. Or 13, sorry.
Check your chain play. We're good. Not really more than a half an inch up or down. It's recommended in the manual. Once both sides are set, we're going to check the tire. Make sure it spins freely and that the chain doesn't bind and nothing is out of place. Okay, so now that we have that done, you're just going to want to tighten the nut back down to snug. Again, you don't need to go crazy with tightening this. If you have a torque wrench, which I recommend, you can tighten it to the manufacturer's suggestion of 81 foot-pounds. But in this case, I don't have a torque wrench that can do that. So again, we're just going to kind of tighten this until it's nice and tight. Being careful not to over tighten, as you don't want to crack one of your spacers or put too much stress on your wheel bearings. And that's probably good. After everything's tightened up, check your tire for free play, and we're good. And that's how you take off the rear tire on a motorcycle. Thank you for your time.